Today is week 5 post-surgery of my complete right shoulder replacement, and day 16 applying functional range systems, in this case specifically functional range conditioning, after I did a functional range assessment on myself. I just want to show you the range that I've gained in the last 8 days. So passively I've gained full 90 degrees. Passively, no problem. My spine and abdomen is fairly neutral, straight, no pain, no problem. So 90 degrees I've achieved, and actively I'm beyond 45 degrees actively, and that's all been in the last 8 days. My external rotation has also increased dramatically, and my active abduction has increased dramatically. So basically, if it was just in a typical traditional physio programming, I'd probably be in the 6 to 8 weeks already, and that's just after 16 days. So 8 days ago I started to program passive range holds, passive range liftoffs, progressive angular isometric loading, regressive angular isometric loading, mostly to the flexion. That's really what's carved out the space. So with the passive range hold, I found my active range, used the doweling, grabbed the doweling, and then just raised it a couple degrees. I isometrically tense through my body, or I radiate through my body, trying to keep my chest, my spine, my body out of it, and just to isolate the shoulder by retracting my scapula, pack that air down, and let go of the doweling. And I work this over a course of 2 minutes. I try to hold it for 4 seconds or so, and if I fail when I let go, and I start to fail, I just grab the doweling, I rest, compose myself, and then I did it again. So that's the passive range hold. Then I moved to passive range liftoff, where when I did try to lift it, I couldn't even budge it. So I did a little bit of that where I was just kind of programming the move, but then I just went back to my active range, grabbed the doweling, and from there I tried to get the jolt going. So the passive range liftoff, and the same thing, trying to irradiate through my body to help me isolate just this shoulder, controlling my spine, controlling my scapula, kind of locking them back so I can really isolate the shoulder. And then I went into progressive angular isometric loading, or PALS. So I at first tried to go to my new passive 90, and actually it was just painful. And as you know, if you've been watching my videos, I avoid pain. I don't believe that you need to program it. It should just be a challenge. So I lowered it until it was just a challenge. And then what I tried to do was sink as I press. So I'm squeezing the doweling, I'm pushing into the ground, and I feel the stretch on the progressive side, all where I feel stretch. I'm really concentrating on pressing and separating myself from my shoulder, and just like lengthening inside my lat as well. So I did this, I held this at like maybe 20-30% irradiation, holding it down, trying to keep other parts of my body out of it, sinking and pressing. And then I went to rails. So in the rails, the difference between the liftoffs is if I could actually lift it, I'm not deep enough into my position. With the rails, I'm going to use the regressive side of the tissue. Same thing, but now I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull myself into the stretch, and I can really feel the top part, the regressive side of this stretch working myself with deflection, monitoring that my elbows, fairly straight, and I pulled myself into the stretch for 2 minutes. And then after that 2 minutes, I just chilled in passive mode, where I just relaxed, and I tried to sink and separate, but just really relax into this position. And then when I came back out of it, I just worked some movement, just to get some life in there. And that's what I've done so far. But if you watch the first video in the first 8 days, you'll see that my circle was really small, what I call my pseudo shoulder cars. And now you can see it's much more rounded, much more smooth, much more controlled. And that, my friends, is using functional range systems, applying functional range conditioning That's 16 days. I'm gonna raise my hand to my maximum active range, grab the dowling, raise it a little bit, and then you're gonna see I'm just gonna really try to keep my spine now. I retract my scapula, kind of retract and descend them, like pull them down a bit here, and then I control where I am by either leaning forward or leaning back, or just moving the dowling so that I can get into the place where I get the maximum stretch. So here I'm going to irradiate and let go and hold for 3 or 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold. If I drop anywhere in there, I just kind of reset, compose myself, and I work over the course of 2 minutes. So that's passive range hold. Then when I go to the passive range lift off, the same thing. I'm looking to be able to have at a range where it's at my maximum, and then see if I can work just a little bit more. So again, irradiating, controlling my spine, my scapula, just trying to really isolate that shoulder. That's my passive range lift off. Now when I go into pails, I find that range, and then to kind of find where the stretch is, I just lean. And there I can feel the stretch already from here. So what I'm going to do is use my isometric to irradiate through my body, and I'm pressing the dowling, about 20 or 30% squeezing, as I contract this tissue and I press myself. So I'm lengthening my spine as my spine moves away. So I'm kind of like sinking away, and I press, and I hold this for 2 minutes. And then after that 2 minutes, I reverse and I go to regressive angular isometric loading, where I'm really concentrating on the top stuff, and it's like I'm trying to lift it, but I can't because I'm sunk. So it's like I'm trying to lift this dowling as I pull myself in, and I'm trying to lift the dowling and still trying to just really isolate the shoulder. So now I'm pulling myself in. And then when I'm done that 2 minutes from here, you'll see I just kind of relax and sink, and I don't clench the dowling as much, and I'm just trying to feel comfort in that area. And then when I move back out, I just kind of work a little bit on that new range. I might even raise it to see if it feels a little bit looser. So that's a side angle.